All right, thank you. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order as extended to June 15th, 2021, with the governor signing of the Senate Bill 2475 superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. If you're using a dial-in by phone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After commissioners have spoken, I will allow the public comments to be spoken by participants. Participants must use the raise hand feature by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom right of the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. If you're using a dial-in telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when you are called upon. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time by their name, and then they will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside this purview need to be addressed to appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the select board. Traffic concerns must be addressed with the planning board. All right. So action items. We have the meeting minutes. So has everyone had an opportunity to review them? Does anyone have any comments or additions or corrections? I'll do a quick roll call vote. Betsy? Oh.
No changes to the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Patrick?
No comments.
All right. I also have no comments. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the November 2nd meeting.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Betsy?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Anything else, Leah, before we start our first meeting at 7:15?
You could read the opening for the 7:30, which requested a continuance to 12/7, although
Okay.
the applicant is on here.
Okay. So that is Upton Street, right?
Correct.
Okay. So pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent for the construction of a single family houses at 179 and 183 Upton Street. The applicant has requested a continuance to which meeting?
12/7.
To the December 7th meeting. If the applicant is on, do they have any questions or comments about it? Otherwise, we're going to move to a motion.
Oh, I don't have anything.
Okay. And so do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the continuance requested for December 7th, 2021.
And that's for
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
what-
for MNOI for 179 and 183 Upton Street.
thank you. Second.
I will second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Betsy?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. All right. Okay, we still have 6 minutes. Anything else?
I was wondering if you got any feedback from your coworker who has worked with the Conway School before.
Okay, I have not. And I actually saw her today in the office for the first time in a year and a half since she joined us.
God.
The main points we're looking for clarification on are like what the deliverables would be. So I guess we're a little bit confused about whether we would be working with an entity like the Conway School in addition to a landscape architect, or if it's like an instead of, and then where the division of work
Okay.
lays between the two.
All right, that's a good question because you may end up doing both. But what you would do is kind of reduce the role of the landscape architect because you'd have a lot of information to feed them as opposed for them to do all the research work. So
Okay.
So, and I don't know, I'm that's my guess on kind of the potential split. But let me check and if you would, Leah, feel free to give me a nudge in an email,
Okay.
and you can simply write, "Have you done it yet?" or something, just to remind me that I
Okay.
need to do something. Anything else coming up that we should know of?
The budget soon. The town transitioned over to a new budgeting software called ClearGov. So this will be the first budget season that we use that
Okay.
to input our budget. Those are due in the middle of December, so I'll be bringing what our budget would look like. I will be bringing to you guys the next meeting.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on kind of the budget process? So, I mean, because this is a volunteer kind of, board, we have, we have input on the budget and so forth, but, both Leah and, and Jan work for the town. And so they control a lot of it, but we definitely have input because we also have, on some of the fees we collect, we have a little bit of latitude on what that's spent on and so forth. And so we do have input on it, and so we can discuss it at the next meeting. But if anyone has any questions or wants to see anything ahead of time, let us know. Okay, down to 2 minutes.
Has everyone seen our, is it Facebook post? Is that where you put that video?
The deer.
A deer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'll have to, I don't follow our Facebook, so I'll have to get on that and take a look at it.
We have a
Yeah.
trail camera. We've been moving around.
Oh, cool.
Take a look.
Yeah, I've been trying to revive the Facebook a little bit and get a little more engagement and attention to conservation. So I just found a cute video of deer that we got on our trail cam. So I figured that would be great to post.
Oh, cool. And yeah, and the commissioners can help a little bit by posting it on our own Facebook or just, sharing it or something, those
Mhm.
type of things, just to kind of let people know what's going on. So that's cool.
Dan, what's
Yeah.
the name of is it the town Facebook page or does the Conservation Commission have its own page?
Grafton Planning and Conservation Department.
Okay, that's
what
why
it's
it's-
under.
Oh, and Helen says hello to everyone. She came by the office the other day.
Oh, great. How's she doing?
Pretty good. Hanging
Okay.
in there.
That's good. Well, if you happen to see her again, please say hello to us from us.
Sure.
That's great. All right, I have 7:15. So let's open our first public hearing. Pursuant to Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for the regrading of the yard at 11 Wesson Street. So Carol Westgate is here to discuss that. So Carol, if you'd like to do a quick presentation, and Leah can put up any type of graphics that you may have submitted.
I
Thank you,
have
Stan.
actually,
Yep.
oh, sorry,
Oh,
I was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say, you need to cue Jan this time. She's running the show today.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine.
I was just going to say that the two people that have been supporting me in this are Chris Tree of Earthworks. I hope he has signed on. And Jan, of course, Conservation Assistant, who holds no blame for anything here, if I didn't explain it. My name is Carol Westgate, and my wife Teresa and I own the property at 11 Weston Street, which is depicted on this topo as lot number 32. Now, if anybody doesn't know where Weston Street is, if you can find North Street for me, it's right by Axtell Corners. Just go to the right a little bit and down, you'll see North Street. Down to the right. Can you move the cursor?
Just shift it up a little bit. Oops.
Okay, so I'm standing at my stone wall. If you can just bear with me, you can see the property lines. So right here to the right a little bit, Jan, is Axtell, right there, you got it. Now come down to your right, you'll see North Street. That's it, perfect, absolutely perfect. North Street runs all the way to the center of Grafton, goes over the Mass Turnpike and ends up at Axtell Corners, going right on Weston, takes you to Old Westboro Road. Going to the left takes you to Institute, and then east or out to Route 30, however you want to go. So this is the location of our property. Is there any question at all as to where my house is located? If there is not, sorry.
Yeah. You can just direct any questions through me, Carol, and we
Okay,
can
sorry.
ask them. So yeah, yes, I'm
Pretty
familiar with
clear.
the area.
Thank you. All right. Could I have the next view, please? This is an aerial view that was submitted with the RDA documentation. And basically it highlights actually 4 major points. I'll be standing, for your benefit, I'm going to be standing along my wall, which is right along North Street or Weston Street, my apologies. Right along that green line, I'll be standing where you see Well Point. So looking at the top of the map, that's north. Looking to the left right there is the west side, which is delineated as the green as the property line between 9 Weston and my property at 11 Weston. Thank you. Going to the right of the red area is my driveway. And a point is my well point, which is in the lower left corner. Then moving up to the corner of my driveway, which is the northwest corner, and to the sandbag line at the north end, running east and west, which was placed by Tufts, Dr. Chris Whittier. We put those lines, the bags in that way. Everything on the west side is the property line, and the work will extend on the west side, the length of the property line over at 9. So that's the area that my present lawn has been decimated. There is no lawn. So if I could go back to the next slide, please. We'll do this. All right. So we're back to this slide. Now, Jan, if you could pick up, you may want to increase this, the contour interval line 372. If you could pick that up for me, it's right about, thank you very much. That contour line runs east, south. The grade for my garage is like 371.1 is right about there. And then if you could follow the 370 contour line, which is the black line, thank you very much, goes from the east down, comes back around. And if you know where the bottom line is, where Jan was showing down here, that's very near where my well point is. And we've had experience with that through the health department. Now, in between 371 and 372 and 370, I did have back in 2006 another contour that was inserted, 371. which falls between obviously 372 and 370, but kind of gets lost as it passes right where the little hand is, which is the northwest corner of my driveway. It kind of comes down towards the lower left and gets drawn into the 370 line. So it doesn't depict on here, but that's where it's shown. So is there any question on that?
I think we're following along.
Okay, excellent. All right, could I have the next view? All right. So if you could just enlarge this a little bit, Jan, please, so that the well point is towards, that's it. Okay, that's good. So I'm trying to delete your photos, pictures at the right a little bit, but you can see the bowl that my yard is in. So there's a marker on the top of my well point, which is one of the marks that's 20 feet from my stone wall, and it's 5 feet from the east of where the property line stands. Now the property line is right to the right of that fern tree back here and extends the same angle as the driveway. So there's a little bit of water on the left, Jan, if you can go up from right where your marker is here. Can you go up towards the corner? Up there, keep going up to the left. Yep, keep going up, go towards the west, more to the left.
That's as
I
far as
just
it
want you to
goes.
go to the north. So anyway, this little body of water is on my neighbor's yard. So that's the work that's going to be done in this area. And so to the right would be the driveway. So that's my Lake Westgate. I could sell the house with waterfront property, and that's what I have. The sandbags that are in the back is the furthest extension for a berm. I do not want to encroach any place on what could be considered wetland. When I looked at the RDA map, but since during the course of this year, the water has traveled back and forth. And could I just have that one more view? There's another picture it showed. Okay, so this is looking out of one of my windows when the water is, and these boulders were placed in here by me through a contractor when they put my sewer line in, and when we broke through the stone wall in the front of my house. Now that's it looks like a berm in effect, but what it is, it's the area between the wetlands, which you might see just behind the boulder, and where the sandbags are. Now the sandbags are going to be removed in 2 days by Tufts. I called them to remove the sandbags, but this photo is about a week ago. And so that is my situation. I would not extend beyond that at all. I talked with Mr. Eitri, who will, if he's on, will make comments on how we're going to proceed to do the work. But I do not feel at all that we will encroach at all onto the wetlands. I just want to replace my lawn with a new lawn so that I can get on with selling my home. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, thanks, Carol. We can go around with all of the, do a poll of the commissioners to see if they have any comments or questions. So I'll start with Betsy. Do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Okay, and Patrick?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, I only have one question. It's really more just disclosure. I know that you back up to Tufts property. Tufts has nothing to do with this particular project. And the reason why I'm saying that is I do work through my company with Tufts. And so I just want to make sure I don't see any issue. I just want to disclose it so that if someone did, I could recuse myself. But this is really on Mr. Westgate's property here, and it really doesn't involve Tufts. So I don't feel I need to recuse myself, but I just wanted to include that into the record so people would know that. I don't really have any questions per se. The only thing I'm wondering is to kind of fill that bowl in, what is the depth of fill that you're putting in there?
If Chris is there, I know we have about 1.5 foot transition in a deep part.
So,
you-
so,
From the 371 at the edge of my driveway down to the furthest depression.
yeah. So if Chris wants to add to that,
Yeah,
please just
Chris.
give your,
Can
just
you
give
hear
your
me?
name and
Yes, thanks, Chris.
Okay, I'm Chris Etrie from Earthworks.
thank you.
The area he wants to fill in, we're probably gonna fill in with 16 to 18 inches of material.
Okay.
The goal would be to kind of strip back the material that's there currently, put some gravel in down below, respread the loam that's there, top it off with some topsoil, rake it and hydroseed it. Our only question at this point is it's not the best time of year to do that due for erosion reasons. So I think discussions with Carol would be to do this more toward the spring, once things are more conducive to growth.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's totally up to the applicant on the timing of it. There are things that you could do, you know, mulch it, put straw
Right.
down, put other type of, that's, but I'll leave that up, the timing to the applicant. So Leah, do you have any other kind of comments?
One thing that I don't know if it's been brought to Carol's attention yet, I know we don't have an official delineation line, but by the photos, you can kind of tell that he's close enough to be in the no disturb area. So I would suggest a waiver request and
Okay.
fee for that. I also had the question for the commission, just to decide if you wanted any kind of signage or barrier going forward for that no disturb.
Good questions. I think by the photo and the fact that there are those large boulders, we already have a barrier of kind of the limit of the yard. So I don't think there's any further. I think that's probably closer than the 25-foot zone, but I think it does mark the edge of the existing lawn and marks where the wetlands are. As far as signage, I'll check with the other commissioners. So Betsy?
I guess my thought is if Carol's going to be selling his property, there's no, you can't assume that the new owners are going to understand what all of this is, so that I would think that it might not be a bad idea to have some
Okay.
signage.
And Patrick?
I don't think the signage is a bad idea. It's very obviously right up to there. So, but you know, if signage can go in, I think that's always
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah, so Carol, what we're talking about signage, they're little 4-inch by 4-inch signs. And we typically, if it was a new construction, would have the no disturb zone marked that way. We're not doing a full delineation. We don't think you need to do a delineation for this site. You're talking about a lawn. So we would, ask to put, and we can, Leah can, specify. I mean, they're basically just a simple sign 4x4 so that the next owner knows that there's a wetlands there and they can't throw their stuff in there and so forth. What, Leah, what does it say on the sign?
I believe it says protected no disturb wetland buffer.
Yep. So that's,
How do I get that? Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's easy.
We have
actually,
them.
okay. I was
Chris,
going to say,
got
we use the same local folks that do them. It's pretty straightforward. And we're probably maybe talking 3 or 4 of them. We're not talking very many, just where the disturbances. All right, so that's that question. As far as the process of using kind of a gravel is a great idea, and then we using the loam on top. As far as erosion control, it's going to be depending upon when you do it. I would say that at a minimum, right at the wetlands line, some straw wattles or something fairly straightforward. We don't, again, it's only within the area that you're working in, and that's it. And other than that, I don't have any questions. Is there anything that I missed, Leah?
Nope, but sorry, we will need a separate vote if we're
For the-
doing the waiver request.
Okay, not a problem. Thanks for the reminder. At this point, what I'll do is I'll open up to the public. If there's anyone here that has any questions or comments on it, please raise your hand via the Zoom. And then we'll and then we'll bring you up as part of a participant. I don't know if Leah or Jan, if we have anyone else listening in tonight.
We have 2 attendees. One, I believe, is here for something else. The other is a phone number, so I'm not entirely
Okay.
sure.
So just as a reminder, if you are looking to have a comment or ask a question, and if you are on your phone, please press *9, and that will raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to move on now to doing a vote on the waiver. So do I have a motion about granting the waiver for work within the no disturb zone?
I'll make a motion to grant the waiver to do work within the 25-foot no disturb zone.
Thanks. And do I have a second?
I second the motion to approve the work in the no disturb zone on Weston Road, 11 Weston Street, sorry.
Okay. So having a motion and a second, we'll do a roll call vote. So Patrick
Yes.
and Betsy.
Yes.
I am also a yes, and so that motion carries. Has anyone raised their hand or any other kind of attempt to that? Okay.
So
So
No.
Carol, any last questions? Because we're about to vote to move along. And just to let you know, when we do the vote, it's going to be to say a negative determination for the RDA, which is what you want. A positive determination means you have to do a full notice of intent. We don't think so. We think the RDA is sufficient. So when we say negative, that's actually what you're looking for, just as clarification.
Okay, negative is okay.
Negative's
That's the
okay.
first
in
time
this
I've
case.
ever got a negative, which is okay.
Yeah, well,
I shouldn't
that's
say
why
that.
that's why I'm mentioning it. So
Let me
we still
restate.
don't have anyone else raising their hand. So do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative determination for this RDA?
I make a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative determination for 11 Weston Street. And we're just making the condition, I just want to note this, whether to include the no disturb signage will be provided and.
Correct.
And
Yep.
that's a permanent sign that stays up
Yes.
permanently.
Yep. It's for the next homeowner or whoever's going to be, whatever the next one is, so that they know that there's actually wetland resources and it's supposed to be no disturb. So it's more for the future than since you already know about it and you're here in front of us. So
Yes, okay, excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
thanks. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All right, great. So we have a motion, a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
and I am also a yes, which means the motion passes so that, the hearings close and you'll be, and we'll issue a negative determination for this request for determination of applicability. So I would suggest reach out to Jan or Leah, coming this week, and they'll be able to give you all the paperwork, and so that you can move ahead. And then Leah, this is good for a year,
3 years.
good for 3 years. So if you wanted to wait until next spring, based on whether that's totally up to you. It is good for 3 years. So,
All right, thank you.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good luck.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hey, it's 7:30. All right. Okay. All right, so 45 Creeper Hill Road. Okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent for construction of a single-family house at 45 Creeper Hill Road. And who is here?
Scott
So
Morris.
Scott, yep. All right.
Good evening, commission members. So we went through the project at the last meeting. I don't know if somebody can bring up the plans. Is that possible? There were a number of questions and comments that the commission had regarding the project. We subsequently provided an updated additional plan. I can go through the details of what was requested and what was provided.
That would be appreciated.
Okay, so we were asked to provide a color-coded BLSF detail so that the elevation's shown where there's proposed fill and where there's proposed mitigation along the driveway. So we provided a detailed color-coded, it's a 8.5 by 11 sheet that shows that, which was provided. The 100 and 200 foot riverfront area lines were also added to the plan at the commission's request, as well as a riverfront area compliance evaluation. So essentially, because this is a lot that was created prior to 1996, it was created back in, I think, 86 or 87. So that, you know, regardless of riverfront area, you know, configurations, the commission shall approve a single family house on a project. And you must comply to the extent that you can to meet current performance standards, which current performance standards would prevent any work from the inner riparian, which is completed, and impacts less than 10% of the total riverfront area on the site. So we're at about 7% of the total riverfront area. So even if it were a new lot created, you know, a few days ago, it would still meet that regulatory compliance. We also adjusted, had the engineer adjust the buffer zone. So there's that upgradient channel that drains from stormwater runoff that comes down through the site. So we've eliminated that 25-foot no disturb buffer zone off that area. I requested a formal waiver for the work within the 25-foot no touch and provided a check for $50 to cover that. I've also gone through and provided an evaluation that the regulations indicate that notwithstanding other provisions of Section 5, the commission may permit the construction and maintenance of a new roadway or driveway of minimal legal and practical width acceptable to the planning board dimensional standards, where an owner has no alternative means of access from existing public or private way across other property of the same owner from an existing public or private way to any upland area on the property. So essentially, there's no other means to get to the site except for crossing, you know, partially within the 25-foot no touch and within bordering land subject to flooding, which we provided the calculations for. And there's also the planting plan that was included in the original notice of intent application. Item 6, we added the tree line, the existing tree line to the plan, added stockpile locations. So you've got a couple stockpile locations on either side of the house. I think it's to the east and west. I think that's the only place you'll have excavation work. The remainder, for the most part, is fill for the driveway. The FEMA mapping, we provided a GIS figure. The engineer showed it on this plan, but it was super confusing. So I thought the easiest and most straightforward way of providing that was to provide a separate detail GIS figure with the mapping.
So Jan, do you have that?
I believe so, yeah.
Yep. We added a 12-inch culvert. There was some concern from the abutter that there was water that flows beneath their driveway through a culvert. So there was an additional 12-inch culvert added along the driveway near the entrance off of Creeper Hill Road, so that any water that drains beneath the abutter's driveway would also flow beneath this proposed driveway. And then lastly, we added a proposed guardrail onto the sides of this, along the access where you've got some steep slopes.
Okay.
And then the last thing, the abutter noted that there's a provision in the zoning regulations that requires a 10-foot landscape buffer around all the perimeters of the site. Because this travels through an easement for the driveway, it doesn't comply with that standard. So I've subsequently consulted with my attorney and provided a variance application to propose the use of the existing driveway easement on the property. So what that does is eliminates any direct wetland impacts and minimizes the BLSF fill by utilizing that easement avoid some of the steep slopes and difficult soils there, so it minimizes the impact. So we've submitted that and proceeding with that variance application.
And again, that's with a different department, but I understand that did come up during this public hearing. Okay, thank you.
I think that summarizes everything. What you see on the screen here is that color-coded detailed cut sheet with the elevations. If you look on the left-hand side, it's got the areas where there's proposed fill. And then if you look at the right side, it's got the areas where there's compensatory flood storage, which will be created to mitigate for the fill.
All right, thank you. That's very helpful.
And what you see there is the overlay of the existing FEMA Zone A blurb, which you can see it crosses multiple topo lines, and is adding that line to the plan would have been very confusing. So we've used the 362 elevation that was provided for a site up gradient from this site associated with Flint Pond. So this site's well down gradient of that, but we're using Flint Pond's flood elevation to determine where the BLSF boundary here is as a conservative measure. I think in Hovey Pond, it's much less. I think it's like 357 or something, but again, might as well use the conservative elevations to ensure that you never have any problems.
And that's acceptable, as we'll discuss for Concom, but we're not actually changing or making a delineation on the actual FEMA line. It's really just how it applies to the Wetlands Protection Act. All right, thank you. All right, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, so I appreciate all of the additional information. Leah, I know you have kind of a long list in your report. Is there anything that you'd like to bring up to start with?
So I did just want a little clarification on your variance application, because we did receive a comment from the building department, and it was talking about that 10-foot vegetated buffer, but they also talked about that vehicular access to a site it needs to be through the site's frontage. So is that another variance you're seeking with them, or what further discussions have you had with them about that?
No, it actually, the site access comes through the frontage. Comes through the frontage of the lot and then goes across the lot through the frontage onto the driveway easement, follows the driveway easement, and then comes back onto this property.
Okay.
So it's all, I think it's all part of the same question. I'll follow up with the building inspector to clarify that.
Yeah. And again, we'll probably just have a condition that says, you have to get, all of the permits. You have to do that before you get a building permit anyway. So, it's not within our purview. It's good to know about it, and we don't want to issue something without some sort of condition that you have to get the other required permits on the zoning. And we're not going to define them, because we're not going to dictate what you have to get. That's with the zoning, that's what you have to get through that, whether it's a building inspector making the determination of what variances you need to do, and you have to go to the zoning board of appeals. That's all fine. We'll just note that those permits are required prior to any construction starts. That's the only thing that we would do.
Mhm.
So it's not within our purview. All right, Leah, anything else? I know we'll have to go through each one of these, and we have a few waivers to go through, and we also have to do any more questions and also open it up to the public.
Yeah, the rest is just what you just itemized. The reason I was bringing up the variance was because the section of the regulations that we're looking at says that the commission shall allow the construction of a single family house on a lot recorded before August 7, 1996, where the size or shape of the lot within the riverfront area prevents the construction from meeting the requirements, provided that, and then there's two pieces, and A is the lot can be developed for such purposes under the applicable provisions of other municipal and state law. So I just wanted
Yep.
to make the commission aware that he's got to go do that other piece with the ZBA to meet this part that ties back into
Right.
our regs.
which is where our condition comes from. We just don't have any jurisdiction on, issuing that variance at all. And I don't know, Leah, do they typically ask us to do any recommendation because it deals with avoiding wetlands?
This is a pretty unusual one, but
Okay,
they might loop me in for comment, to which I would point them to this.
Right.
This process.
and from the wetlands, and from the Conservation Commission's perspective, by doing this, we're actually protecting the wetlands, so, which is fairly straightforward for us, for our concerns. Okay, so I'll go through the commissioners first to see if they have any other questions. And then we'll go through each one of the waiver requests, go through that, and then go through what conditions we'll have. But before we get to that part, we'll open it up to the public. So Betsy, any other questions about any of the things that we've discussed so far?
No.
Okay. Patrick, any questions?
I don't have anything right now.
Okay, great. And so I'll open it up to the public. So again, if you're online and you're using Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're a phone, I have to go back to my lead sheet. You need to press star 9 to raise your hand.
All right, we have one person raising their hand from a phone number.
Okay. So then they can hit star 6 to unmute yourself, and you can then identify yourself and please ask any questions.
Hi, my name is Katie Mason. I'm at 43 Cooper Hill Road. I did send over a letter about an hour ago. I'm not sure if you guys would like to just start from there, or I could read it out loud. It doesn't matter.
Did we get that, Leah, or was after you guys left for the day?
I was gone.
Yeah, got it around 6:20.
Okay. So why don't you just read it so that we can have it and then we can respond to anything.
Okay. Let me pull it up right now. I have it. All right. So just read the whole thing, and then maybe piece by piece we can go through it together.
Or you can highlight the ones that you want to discuss. We have it. We received it. It's just it came in after the office was closed, so we don't have it. But it's up to you on how if you want to read it into the record, or if you want to just go through and the questions that you still have after listening to some of the responses and new information we received tonight.
Yeah, I'll just start with kind of like the bulk of the letter. So
Yep.
I do have an inquiry or question kind of on like the slopes.
Yep.
So I'll state what I have here. I said, at a minimum, the board should require the applicant to do engineered retaining walls, which would be less impact on the wetlands and the no disturb zone. This would also cause less future problems with erosion into the wetlands. Many towns and cities require a 2-to-1 slope that would be much more stable. A 1-to-1 slope is a 45-degree slope that cannot even be walked up or maintained. This 1-to-1 slope is very susceptible to erosion. An engineered retaining wall would cost the applicant more money, so I understand why he did not propose this. However, he is asking for many waivers, and he should be required to do everything possible to mitigate wetland impacts. I still believe the board should deny this project due to the overall impact and the many waivers that do not seem to be justified to be given out on this situation. Please also consider the need for engineered retaining walls on the other wetland crossing, as riprap, slopes that are steep need to be maintained, which many times is not done by homeowners. The riprap is also susceptible to erosion, as previously discussed. So
So,
that was my comment. on
sure. So let's
slopes. Yep.
go. So just let's kind of address that. Let's go back to the plans. Okay, and can you just go down to the title block? I'm just looking for the stamp. Okay, so there's the stamp. So so Scott, I don't know who you, I can't quite read the engineer.
Jason Du Bois. of
Okay.
DP Engineering.
Okay, so you have, so the plan is stamped by a civil engineer. And as far as the engineering of that slope, I understand a 1-to-1 is steeper than what you would typically have for something that could be vegetated and maintained. A 1-to-1 riprap slope, if constructed properly and it is stamped by an engineer, which this one is, you know, I'm not going to second guess the engineer that has stamped this drawing. Can you go to and look at the details? Okay. Go ahead and go to the call out of that. Can you zoom into the area as far as any notes on that sloped? Okay, so Scott, did you have a separate detail for that sloped riprap?
He didn't provide one. It's
Okay.
just typical, yeah, I think he's just calling it out as a typical 1-to-1 riprap slope.
Okay, so so I'll go to the commissioners first to see if there are any other questions. I actually have a suggestion on how we can take care of that, but Patrick, do you have any specific questions on that 1-to-1 slope?
No, I don't have anything to add on that right now.
Okay, Betsy?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, so doing a 1-to-1 riprap slope, it is not uncommon, and it's got stamped by you know, a registered professional engineer in the state of Massachusetts. I would suggest you know, a condition that that engineer needs to submit a detail of that riprap slope. So riprap is defined under Mass DOT material standards. So we would just want something that indicated, you know, that it is following that it is has gravel underneath it, and that how it's towed in at the bottom. Those are all the different components in a 1-to-1 slope that is riprap that is needed for the detail to make sure it's, you know, constructed correctly. It is pretty standard. There is actually, I think Mass DOT used to have a standard detail for that. So Scott, is that something your engineer can pull together for you?
Absolutely. I'll be
Yeah.
sure that he gets that to you.
So again, what it is that, you know, that question on the slope is appropriate, because if it's not constructed correctly, you have a potential of having erosion control. As far as like requiring the commission to have this retaining wall, let's forget about price. Let's talk about where the wetlands are. And so at this point here, that riprap slope is not going into any bordering vegetated wetlands. The resource it's going into is a bordering land subject to flooding, and there's compensation for that. So we need to review the plan in front of us, and if there's any deficiencies or if there's anything under the wetlands protection law, excuse me, wetlands protection law and regulations that would require us to change it, then we have some authority to do that. In this case here, making this a 1-to-1 slope and reducing the footprint of that slope is an appropriate approach. And I don't know how we would base, I know, Leah, I don't know how we would base on doing that because it's within the buffer zone and not actually in the wetlands. If this encroached on the wetlands, I think we might be talking a different story.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to explain it through, but I'm also trying to answer your question specifically, which is why we would require a detail so that, the construction of that slope is made sure that it is following the engineer's direction on how to install that. So hopefully that answers that specific question and we can kind of go on to the next one.
Yep. So my next one is on the driveway culvert, the one at the top of the driveway.
Yep.
So the culvert under the driveway, it comes from the Creeper Hill Catch Basin. It discharges 10 feet from a wetland. So I'm not sure if the applicant should consider some form of storm management or possibly some sort of a storm scepter system, as he is piping the water 20 feet under the driveway and then shooting the pipe out on a 1-to-1 slope. He's taking away much of the surface area that the water now has to run across and soak in. So it seems kind of like he's piping the road runoff into the wetland, because there is a lot of water that does come through during the storm.
Sure. So, so as far as putting in a water quality device, that would be coming off a public way. This applicant or any applicant who's doing a residential house and is not really, they do not have the responsibility to treat the water coming off a public way or off someone else's property. As far as, making sure you're not impacting as far as erosion control, I would agree with that. Can you zoom in to where that pipe is, Jan? So the pipe goes there and then it's going to spill out onto the riprap, which is actually pretty good. Because that's going to slow the water down when it hits. Just a quick question for you. Do you know what the size of a riprap stone is?
Yes.
Okay, so you understand that, they're actually done by weight, but it's a large stone. So when the pipe comes out from underneath that, it's going to hit the stone. It will actually act as an energy diffuser, so it would have less. I think it's good for us to make sure once this is installed that we go out there and make sure that there's no erosion at the down gradient exit point of the culvert, just to make sure that there isn't any potential impacts. But as this is kind of drawn, as far it's coming and hitting that riprap, that's a great diffuser and it will help to slow the water down. But I think your question is noted, and I think we need to make a note in our records that we need to check that once the project is, been constructed to make sure there's no issues. And if there is any issues for like erosion downstream of that outlet, then we would have to go back to the owner and say that something has to be done. But again, to put a water quality treatment device on this, that's to remove total suspended solids from pavement areas, and he's actually going underneath his own driveway. And by regulations, he doesn't have to treat what's coming off someone else's property. So, but that's a good question, and we'll note, Leah, that we should check that, if this project gets built. Next question.
Going along with this, I do think like it's all coming from the road, so the sand and the salt, that's going right into the no disturb zone. Am I correct?
True, but it's going there now. Based on what you've said of where the flow goes from your property, it still goes to the no disturb into the wetlands. Yes.
From my property, it doesn't go through like a pipe or anything. So I just feel like when it's all directed in one spot, I feel that causes a lot more damage than when it's like spread out.
So you did say you have a pipe underneath your driveway, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that concentrates the flow. It probably has a little bit of availability to spread out again. And then when it gets to this driveway, it's going to do something very similar, go underneath a very similar culvert and do the same thing. As far as the salt component, I would love to find out if, find a particular water quality treatment process that could actually take a soluble salt out of runoff. Unfortunately, doesn't really exist. And if we can get infiltration, get some settlement, and that's probably going to be the best thing to protect the wetlands. In this particular case, it will be going over the riprap and then some surface cover, but it's when the water reaches either the no disturb or the wetlands, it's not going to have less soluble salt content in it than what's already there. So I don't know. Water quality device unfortunately does not take salt out of a runoff. So I understand your concern. That's a bigger issue, and it would be more appropriate, not to salt the road than to not put this pipe in. So,
Okay. So those are my only two questions that I had for tonight. I think a couple of my questions that I had in the last meeting kind of still stand, or like my comments from last time. But my letter just kind of talks about that a little bit.
okay.
Otherwise, I don't really have much else for tonight.
Okay. And so kind of, I think as you heard earlier, we will have a condition in our approval when we get to that point about we don't control and we don't issue anything as far as a variance dealing with zoning. Those items will have to be obtained through the Zoning Board of Appeals. We don't control that. We'll just note that. We're going to just about get to discussing all the conditions that we're going to have for this project. So if you have any other questions on those, you can certainly feel free to ask. I will make sure we ask if there's any other public comment again. Okay.
My only other thing was on the zoning.
Yeah.
Just because the current plan does not abide to like all of the zoning laws, as you guys definitely talked about tonight. So other than that, if you guys do like approve it, it still needs to go through zoning, because zoning just won't approve. It doesn't pass that.
Yeah, so that's the whole process of getting the variance for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Yes, we don't control that, and yes, this project could not start until those other variances are approved. They can always, if they are denied, my guess is that we'd see this applicant back here again with a lot more fill going on in the wetlands, and then we'd have to go through that process. So that would be different, but yeah, so that's, but you're right. Okay.
And I do believe in the past that the Grafton Conservation Commission has been very strict with its 25-foot no disturb requirements. And there seems like there's being a lot of waivers that are going on here.
Yeah. So as every site is different. Every site is unique, and we look at once each site. It is not uncommon to grant a waiver for certain components of a project, i.e. maybe like a stormwater facility, because it's water dependent. It's usually a low part and it gets close. Sometimes it is, on an access driveway going over an old culvert or something. We're always going to be within 25 feet. There are times when that flexibility is needed. That's why the local bylaw is written that way. But when we talk about the rest of the site, when you get onto the property, all of the rest of the 25 foot around the building is being maintained. So yes, we do look at the 25-foot no disturb very closely. And each time we do grant a waiver, it's because it's a unique circumstance based on the either topography or the configuration of the lot. So, okay. So, Leah, so as far as the first, your first kind of a discussion point, we've already talked about the waiver. We do know that needs to be to be addressed through the ZBA. And that's the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Did
We-
I miss anything on that?
No, but we have another hand up.
Okay, sure.
By the name of Dave.
So Dave, if you could give your name and address and go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, David Mason. I'm actually Katie Mason's father. I actually do site
Excuse
work
me,
and
could-
construction.
Excuse me, can you give your
Yeah.
address? Can you give me your address?
Oh, yes, my address is 5 Dean Farm Road, Sutton, Mass.
Okay,
I'm actually Katie's father.
Yep.
Who spoke earlier. I'm in the construction business. I see this driveway. I see the 1-to-1 slope. It looks good on paper, but I know when these slopes get built, they're always pushed out further on the bottom. They get widened on the top. They don't quite make the 1-to-1. It just doesn't quite make it. I'm just saying that a retaining wall has a set footprint on the bottom. It's straight up, has guardrails on it. There's no maintenance required, and it has a set area. It would definitely be less impact if it's straight up than a 1-to-1 slope. I would suggest that the board require that. I don't see why they wouldn't when it would reduce the impact on the wetlands.
so I'll say this again. That
Mhm.
slope does not go into the wetlands. That
I
slope
understand
is,
it does not go into the wetlands, but it does go into the 25-foot no disturb. And by him creating a retaining wall would be less waiver, less no disturb. It's something you can put a restriction on the site. I mean, if you're doing this to save him money, so he doesn't
no, sir.
increase the wetland.
Can we back up just a little bit? And I want to make
You
this
sure
clear.
can.
I want to appreciate people's comments and so forth. And I understand that you're not a Grafton resident and that you're speaking on behalf of your daughter who is. Just a
Yep.
few things.
I actually do own quite a bit of property in Grafton, so I
Which is
am a
fine.
Grafton property owner.
That's fine. You have every right to speak. There's nothing wrong with that. Just to
Okay.
step back.
Well, you
I
said I
had-
didn't, you said I didn't live in Grafton, so you were putting that as a less, like you would less listen to me.
No, that's just a
Okay, well,
fact.
well, you
That's just
stated
a
the fact.
fact. Yep. So just to give you a little bit of background on my experience, I have over 30 years of civil engineering experience and have worked on many things. I feel very dedicated to my responsibility as far as a fair and equitable type of enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act. I have spent my career in front of many different wetlands, conservation commissions. I want to be balanced. I want to enforce the regulations. Okay. I don't want to overreach my my kind of jurisdiction. At the same time, I also want to protect the wetlands, and I'm going to make people adhere to the Wetlands Protection Act. I try to be balanced in my approach. I also try to be very consistent. So when I look at this, I understand that the abutter has many concerns. They have, that's what you should do. This is the public process. And I really think it's very important for us to sit here and go through each one of Katie's requests and questions. I also don't think that, I also think as a commission, we need to be very balanced on how we do it. And we need to treat this project as we treat all other projects. And so we have a great staff who goes through and does a lot of the work for us, helps us to prepare what we're doing. Us as volunteers, and I'm very, very privileged to be on this commission because we have a lot of dedicated people. And those folks want to protect the wetlands and they want to do their job. And with that respect, as far as the Conservation Commission. So from my perspective, I am not allowing an applicant to do something to save money. That's not what it's about. We get a certain plan. I do not re-engineer any plans. I am a citizen sitting on this commission. So when I get a set of plans, we're going to review that plans based on what was submitted. And we're going to, judge whether that is in compliance and whether, a waiver is requested, we say it. So we try to take a very, balanced approach. I understand that you're in the business and I understand all about a 1-to-1 slope, but we also have a stamp plan from a professional engineer. So that's it. If he does not, if this is constructed and the bottom the tower slope is 10 feet closer to the wetlands and has further impact, they will have to submit an as-built, which is standard requirement. They'll have to do that slope. That's just the reality of it. So I just want to give you kind of my perspective. You know, I understand, you know, if something's not built correctly, it's an issue, and that's why we require an as-built for that. So sorry to give that kind of long thing, but this is the third hearing, Leah?
It's
Second.
Second, it's the second hearing. So we've asked a lot of questions. We asked the applicant to come back with a lot of information, and they have come back with that. So we're just trying to move it along. We know that this is not finished its approval process. We're part of that process, and we're looking to do our part. So
I was just asking the board to, if they could maybe ask him to show a retaining wall. I would think it would be less impact on the wetlands and would have a definite, that's all. You have,
Okay.
you as the board said that you have the right, that's all I'm
So
asking.
no, that's not a problem. So I have no problem asking the applicant if he has considered a retaining wall and if he would put one in.
Yeah, I considered it. I spoke with the engineer and, you know, this is, he designed this as, you know, a one-to-one slope. I think when you start looking at a retaining wall, by the time you look at the comparison, I think the impacts are gonna be pretty much the same. You know, by the time you put in a footing and you know, start building that up. So I think it's, if you compare the two, it's, by the time you looked at the actual impacts, it's gonna be very close.
Okay,
Just
and
a-
obviously, obviously we don't have, you know, a designed wall that has a batter to it in, you know, the area that needs to be disturbed. We don't have that information in front of us. We were not asked to look at that. I don't mind asking the applicant if they would want to do it, but that would be something that we're not asking them directly to do. So,
Right, but a straight up wall would be less footprint on the bottom. That's a fact.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about
Yeah.
an engineered precast, poured in
Correct.
place vertical
Correct.
wall.
Right. Right,
Again,
when you drive up to shopping malls, that's what you see. You see a wall.
Right.
You don't see riprap one-to-one slopes.
yeah, go to the shops at Blackstone.
Yeah, that's not a riprap slope, that big slope. That is
That's a
not
boulder.
riprap
That's
slope. Yes.
actually a boulder wall.
Exactly.
Similar
It's
type of
totally
approach.
different. Totally different.
Different structurally, but same footprint. So, and it's, yeah, but it's not that you've just stated that, you know, you've seen the one-to-one slopes put in. So we don't need to get into the back and forth of all of our histories of
Okay.
good installations and bad installations. So we can
Okay.
move on from that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So Leah, next thing, so we've talked about the zoning and that still has to happen. So let's talk about the waivers. So, so as far as the continuous upland, so we need to first vote on that waiver. So do I have a motion based on the bylaw section V.C.4 to grant a waiver for the continuous upland, and that has to do is based on the findings of the unusual lot layout and the division caused by drainage swale. Do I have a motion on that?
I make a motion to grant a waiver to the due to the unusual lot layout for the 45 Creeper Hill Road project.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We'll do a roll call vote. Betsy,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and also a yes. That motion carries. The next waiver request is from the 25-foot no disturb. Do I have a motion on that?
I make a motion to grant the waiver for the design providing maximum possible distance to resource area and no possible alternative on site for the 25-foot no disturb zone.
great. And what you read were the findings on why we're granting it. Do I have a second?
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second. So roll call vote. Betsy,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
I am also a yes. That motion carries for that waiver. So let's go further and do findings. And this is our first finding is what we've been discussed at the public hearing as far as finding that the bordering land subject flooding elevation of 362 per the previous map amendment and based on the existing mapping and how much the zone A crosses all of the contours, which is not what's happening out on the site. Actually, as you know, typically a floodplain does not go across multiple contours. And then that this determination is for the Conservation Commission wetlands notice of intent only, and obviously this does not have any impact on the FEMA, only as it pertains to our wetlands bylaw and the state regulations. From the commissioners, do you have any questions on that finding or ask any questions on that? Patrick?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, and Betsy?
No questions.
Okay. And then the other finding is limited project per 310 CMR 10.53 3E in the bylaws, section VC 2 about the necessary crossing to the site on the upland. And that's pretty straightforward. And again, it has to do with the unique lot configuration, the timing of when the lot was created, and the proposed project of getting to the upland portion of it to site the house. Betsy, any kind of comments or questions on that finding?
No.
And then Patrick, any other questions on that?
Nope, that makes sense.
Okay. As far as like special conditions, one of them is the ongoing, an ongoing condition that would prohibit any further activity under this provision, and that's 310 CMR 10.533E, and that's the riverfront. Leah?
Yes.
Okay, so basically what this says is once this goes forward, there cannot be any additional work done within the riverfront to extend the alterations in the riverfront. So also another special condition is no disturb signage affixed to the guardrail along the driveway from the road up to wetlands flag C6. And then we'll have as a standard condition, the no disturb signage on the other portions of the site, Leah.
This was the area that I thought needed it.
Based on, yeah.
I didn't see others.
Okay, so it's only at the entrance because everything else is
No,
further away.
It's from the entrance up just
Oh,
about
up
to
to
where the
where,
house is.
Gotcha, because of how it circles back around, the wetlands does.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then the next special condition is flood storage shall be constructed prior to any filling of the land subject to flooding. And then another special condition is just a requirement that any variances needed for the construction of this site, those variances, those approvals need to be submitted to Conservation Commission to confirm that they were obtained. We don't review it. We don't do anything. We just want to make sure we have it in our file prior to any construction going on. So I'll go to the commissioners to find out if they have any. Oh, go ahead, Leah.
We had one more that we had talked about earlier, that the
Oh, good.
engineer will submit a detail of the
Yes.
riprap slope.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. And then the other condition is to have a detail of the one-to-one riprap slope stamped by the engineer of record to make sure that that slope is installed per his direction or their direction. Okay. So, all right, so those are the special conditions. They would be in addition to our standard conditions. I'll go to the applicant. Do you have any questions on those special conditions?
Nope.
All right, thank you. I will, typically we don't open it back up to the public, but just based on the abutters concerns, I'll ask them if they have any specific questions on the special conditions that we're doing. And those are above our standard conditions. There's a set of boilerplate conditions that the state has that we would follow them. Another like standard condition that we include is that there has to be an as-built of the site and submit it to us to make sure that everything was installed where it was supposed to. So I would just open it up if you have any other questions on the special conditions. All right. Not seeing or hearing any of the questions. Okay, so those are the special conditions. All right, so based on the special conditions I just read, the ones that were listed on Leah's report, plus the two other special conditions discussed tonight, do I have a motion? Yep.
Can I make I know Patrick's, I'm trying to figure it out too.
Okay.
So is it one motion covers all the special conditions, Sandy?
Yes, it is one motion. So the findings are just separate. We'll note that in any
Right, so
issuance.
findings don't need a motion.
No, it's just the, it's just
Okay.
where to close,
I just-
we're closing the hearing and issuing order of conditions. And as part of the order conditions, it's also the special conditions that we talked about.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I make a motion to close the hearing with the special conditions. Ongoing condition, do you need me to read each one?
you can say as just discussed.
As just discussed.
Okay. And Leo does a very good job of keeping track of these so that when we go to sign things, we can actually check it. So that's good. And obviously that's all public. So, all right. So we have a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions with the conditions discussed. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And then we have to do a roll call vote. So Betsy
Yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Okay, so you can, Scott, you can reach out to Leah. We'll have, the order of condition will need to be written up and so forth, but you can reach out to her. And obviously you heard the conditions and the more specific one, the variance one. So once you get that, if once you apply for it and whether approved or not approved, if you could just let Leah know so that we go to the next step. So,
Will do. And then I'll also have that plan revised too.
all right.
Show that detail as required, so.
Yep. And then
Thank you very
just submit that because Leah needs to have that before any construction starts.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That's it, right? We don't have any more.
I have one other item that has come up in the meantime. Jan, if you can pull up 130 George Hill Road on both GIS and those couple of photos I have in Dropbox. So 130 George Hill had an ongoing drainage problem on their lot. Their lot was receiving a lot of the runoff from George Hill and also from across the street. Over time, this cut a channel in their yard. This is not the channel.
Right. We've seen this before, right?
They filed in the past with a proposal on how to fix this. They
Yep.
didn't go through with that fix at the time, and this year with the more severe and intense rainfalls we had, it became a really dicey situation with the trench cut very deep and very close to their foundation.
Gotcha.
So DPW took the initiative to put a pipe in beneath George Hill Road to catch what was coming from across, get it underneath George Hill Road.
Okay.
Also through this lot, they had to make a cut through the driveway. So it was coming in basically the north end of this lot. It was
Yep.
entering in that corner, but then it travels down. If you want to turn on topography, we'll make it a little clearer. And so this channel was cut from that northeast corner of the lot,
Yep.
down in front of the house, down towards the wetlands they have in the southwestern corner.
Okay.
So DPW put a pipe in to capture it, send it under the road and beneath the driveway, and then outlet towards those wetlands down below.
Yep.
So that picture you saw a second ago is what it was looking like, because it was taking all this dirt from their yard and sending that into the wetlands instead. The other picture I have is just how deep it was cutting into the lawn.
Leah,
So
is this because of the pipe, or this is before they put the pipe in?
this was before the pipe was the
Right.
solution. So because it was getting really close to their foundation,
Okay,
I went ahead and issued an emergency certificate
Yep.
for this. And I was looking for ratification from you guys
Okay.
or any questions you might have.
Okay. I mean, this has been an ongoing issue, and and it is the town's water that's, or it's crossing the public way. So it's actually if you were to bring up the overview of that site again, you can see on the right-hand side of George Hill Road, you can see a swale coming down that hill.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, so that comes down and it screams right across the road, correct?
Yes.
And
Well,
it was
previously, yeah.
previously, yeah. So it
Yep.
would go right across the road and go right into their yard. And over time, it had built up that very big, deep, eroded channel there that Leah showed of that other picture. So I'm guessing they filled in that gaping hole in the front yard.
They dropped the pipe in the chasm that had been created, and then filled over top.
Okay.
But they also did note, they kind of suspect that there might have been some sort of underground drainage structure of sorts back from like the farming days that might have
Gotcha.
collapsed under there because of how, like, it was a significant difference in depth this year with the rains we've had.
Gotcha. So the old kind of old-fashioned stone pipes, which are, or soil pipes, which is like farmers used to put stones underneath so the water could get places, and then and then it creates problems if it fails. So, okay, I mean, this is long overdue, so this is good. What do they put at the end of that pipe before the wetlands?
So there's some riprap out there.
Okay, all right. So we should just check it every once in a while to see if there's any further, problems at the end of those pipe. But
Okay.
I mean, I think this is actually really good that they actually did this, and I have no issues with you issuing that emergency. Does anyone else have questions on this or comments? Betsy
no, I think that's all great.
and Patrick?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, so you need a motion, correct, Leah?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to, what would you like the motion to say, Leah?
To ratify the emergency certificate.
Thank you. Thank you for the
I-
words.
I
Okay.
make a motion to ratify the emergency certificate that was issued for the address
130 George Hill Road.
130 George Hill Road.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, roll call vote. Betsy,
Yes,
Patrick,
Yes.
and Leah.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So the motion passes. So, all
All
right.
right,
Anything else come up last minute?
that's all I have.
Okay. All right.
No cat tonight.
I
You know what?
know, where
The
is,
cat's out there. I gotta go actually make sure he comes. He's probably out in the garage or something, trying to hunt mice or something, whatever. I gotta go grab him. Yeah. Sorry, if you want, I can go get him, but yeah. So he's all bummed out because I was actually in the office all day today. So he's probably snubbing me because I ignored him all day. So, all right. So next meeting's December.
Correct,
And
7th.
yeah, so everyone have a great Thanksgiving and enjoy yourselves.
I gotcha.
You
And
too.
And can I
Yeah.
make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
you absolutely can.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
So Betsy,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Leah,
Yes.
I am also a yes. So we're done.